Welcome to the Danish Global Culture Talks, a series of live stream talk shows debating art and culture from Kunstmuseum of Modern Art in collaboration with Nordic LA. The talks have emerged out of an urgent need to debate the meaning and relevance of culture and art today in an ever-changing global context. This has become even more relevant as a result of the current global crisis caused by COVID-19. In today's talk, we are going to talk about what happens online, and we are going to dive into the internet that is more than ever a part of every people's life. The internet is crowded by cultural institutions, art museums, concert halls, musicians, and many more creating new content online. What can we learn from the current situation? What is equality? And are there new formats, new trends, new ways of working these cultural sectors? Today, each participant will share the favorite artists, online platforms who are using this situation to work with new formats, or just to do a lot of the things they did before, but now in a more and interesting way. Our panel of experts will talk and debate the quality of some of those formats that are popping up online today. Ask each panelist to give today's talk, the Danish Global Culture Talks format, a score from 1 to 10, where 10 is the highest score. But of course, this is not only a debate between me and my guests. You're also welcome to take part of this and post questions. To do so, use the chat function on the website if you attend here, or on Kunstens Facebook or YouTube channel. Today, we are so pleased having three amazing guests with us. Christiane Vejlø, one of the leading Nordic experts within technology and online activities, a radio and a podcast host, moderator, a futurist, and a digital analyst and founder of Electronista Media. Welcome, Christiane.
Good to be here.
Troy Conrad Tyrion, who's the head curator of architecture and digital initiatives at the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum in New York. How are you, Troy?
Hey, good, thanks.
Thanks. Mark Christoph Wagner, originally from Germany and since 2012 the editor of the Luciana channel that recently was highlighted in New York Times. Mark Christoph is also a former reporter for the German radio and TV station RAD. Welcome, Mark Christoph.
Hey, good to be here.
And your host today, me, Christian Ries. I'm a musician in the Danish bands Nephew and True North. I'm also the founder of Nordic LA, who was co-presenting these talks together with Kunsten today. So here we are, two from the art world, an online expert and a musician. And thank you for being with us today. But before we start our talk today, we do have a guest star, Kwame Liv, with us. Kwame Liv is a rapidly rising star and a Danish Zambian musician, artist, and author. She has an extraordinary voice, and with more than 25 million online streams, she's for sure heading towards the stars. Today, Kwame Liv is going to perform a song for us, live from her home studio, and I'm super excited because I'm a big fan. So, hey Kwame, can you hear me?
What a sweet introduction. Thank you so much, Christian.
Thank you for joining this.
Oh, I can't hear.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, come on.
Can you hear me now? Good.
I can.
You're gonna perform a song for us. Do you want to introduce the song?
I mean, it's actually an unreleased song that we've been testing out on this virtual tour we just finished yesterday. So it's I mean, it just kind of is what it is. I'm currently working on my next project and have been in the studio a lot during this time and also writing a lot from home. So it's just like kind of seeing what has come out of that and trying it out and testing new things. And yeah.
Amazing. So high spirits and positive feelings about the situation.
Well, I mean, there's it's obviously a drastic situation. It's obviously a situation that has flipped our world on its head, and from that there is going to be both positives and negatives. And I think in the midst of this, the suffering that it has caused and is still causing, and the unpredictability that it presents, it's the best you can do is really just try to seek
Mm,
the light in the situation. And as
mm,
an artist, for me, that definitely has meant trying to be as creative as possible.
mm.
um yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Um, I'm excited. Let's hear the song. Do you wanna say something about the song? What is it called? And
It's called I haven't actually named it yet, so
all right,
it's really an exclusive. But I'm gonna be playing with one of my dear co-producers and people that I work with, Nicola Kwanrup.
hi Nikolai.
uh, so yeah, let's see. Hopefully the sound is all right. Let's test it out. Yeah. Bobby, baby, Bobby, darling, let's hang out sometime. You bring all that green leaf loving, and I'll bring the red one. And we'll pretend it's innocent, and we'll forget about the time. And we'll make love in your kitchen, and we'll both act surprised when I am gone. In the morning, I am gone with the dawn. Bobby, baby, Bobby, darling, let's go out sometime. Out along the razor's edge where lovers like to climb. And you'll go through my thoughts again, and I'll deny that anyone but you, my friend, could ever catch my mind. Still I'll be gone. In the morning, I'll be gone with the dawn. Said I'll be gone. In the morning, I'll be gone with the dawn. Oh, are you there?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Thank
Thanks.
you. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you so much. That was beautiful.
thank you.
Thanks for taking your time and sharing your thoughts. Good luck with your. I know the virtual tour is over, but please let us know when we're gonna hear more from you. And take care out there. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
See you,
and
Kwame.
good luck with the talk. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us. Ciao,
Of
ciao.
course. Bye
Bye.
bye. All right. Back to the studio. Dear Christiane, Troy, and Mike Christoph, welcome to Danish Global Culture Talks. We are going to talk about culture and art that have been popping up during the COVID-19 crisis. And when we look into other formats and outputs, I would like all of you to evaluate the Danish Global Culture Talks format and give it a grade from 1 to 10. And especially gives today's show, including your own performance, a grade from 1 to 10 too. We'll get back to that at the end of the show today. So, Troy, how does everyday life look for a curator at the Guggenheim Museum during a COVID-19 crisis?
Like this, on video chat, wall to wall, all day, every day, with a bunch of people saying, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" Normally, there'd be more babies in the picture, sometimes cats and dogs. Um, yeah, like everything else, we've become totally decentralized. I think it's interesting. I want to be careful with my words. So like interesting almost feels like too cavalier of a word to use at a time like this. But I think it is interesting to be at a cultural institution when a cultural institution in not just America, but in the epicenter of the COVID outbreak in America in New York, um, amongst uh, basically a kind of media shitstorm that makes money on provoking fear. And so, there was a study that came out, I think, a day or two ago, a kind of poll of Americans, like, uh, and the answers to the questions were sort of like, okay, would you feel comfortable doing X only if there was a vaccine, or immediately after the lockdown ended, or 2 months after, or 3 months after. So they're trying to figure out what's the pent up demand for
Mm.
different industries. And I don't think they asked museums specifically, but they asked things like even restaurants. And it's like 36% of Americans are not even going to be comfortable going to a restaurant until there's a vaccine. So first
Oh.
of all, 36% of Americans need to learn more about the science of medicine. But second of all, what does that mean for things like culture that aren't even like if food can't survive in this environment? What was it like within like a couple weeks of the
Mm.
of the lockdown, 3% of restaurants shut down and will probably never reopen.
Yeah.
So I think I can't say too much specifically about what we're talking about at the museum because obviously it's ongoing, and as a museum we like to announce the things we're doing once we're sure we're going to do them. But one general conversation is, what does it even mean to be a museum right now, and what's it going to mean in 6 months and
Mm.
12 months and 18 months and beyond that?
Mm. Mm.
Who can even really think that far into the future? And there's, we're facing both an incredible opportunity and an existential crisis at the same time.
Yeah, but of course, when we hear about New York in general in the media, it's you hit pretty hard. Within like the museum world, are you preparing for opening up? Are you dealing with the online situation? How do you actually work? Are you working from home? How does it work out?
Yeah, all of the above. So we have committees that are looking at all the different reopening scenarios, when we'll reopen, what the issues we'll have to deal with. Obviously, the regulations keep changing and are just speculative now, anyways. So will we have to take everyone's temperature? Do we have to keep a 6 foot minimum distance between people that are not from
Mm.
the same family? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Guggenheim morphologically as a spiral museum, in some ways may have a bit of an advantage in kind of social
mm.
distancing scenarios because we don't have these same kind of pinch points. So it'll be an
Yeah,
interesting study. Um, but yeah, and then obviously, right now the only game in town is digital. So the other thing is, re-looking at your entire staff from top to bottom and thinking, who can be repurposed to do what in a moment where if 70% of people spent their time thinking about physical gathering, what is the form of expertise that they can bring now to digital ventures? Well, at the same time, how do you not just overflood your channels, right? How do you not just kind of like
yeah,
automatically turn into a digital institution overnight?
yeah. Cool. And that's something that we're gonna talk a bit about more later. I want to jump to you, Christiane. In my world, you are my guiding star when it comes to technology, and when I need to get new inspiration or like doesn't understand what's going on online. So, how is your situation during the COVID-19 crisis? And do you in general see the content online getting better or worse, or is there just a lot of it?
Well, the thing is that my job consists of advising on and communicating digital trends and technology, but a very big part of my job is about talking to people physically, in a room with them, standing on stages or doing panel talks like this. And obviously, that's not been possible. So I have, like so many others, had to digitalize my business
Mm.
in a very rapid pace. And I think that what we're seeing is that there were the trend of doing more video conferencing and digitalizing products has had sort of a quantum leap in these times. And people who would normally say, I prefer the analog meeting, or I don't want to digitalize my business so much, have actually been forced to do it. And also been forced, or maybe realizing that you can have a connection through the screen also. Normally we would say we prefer an analog meeting, but here we don't have a choice anymore. So what we need to do, and what I'm seeing being done, is that we have a fast learning curve, and we're also learning how we qualitatively can use the screen and the ways of the digital connection, and what we're talking about today, also expressing art and culture through digital devices, because we haven't really had a choice. And I think that some positive things have come out of that, and the quality of the content is increasing every day. But it is like previously said, conference calls are filled with like, can you hear me? And somebody walking behind you naked. We're still quite immature in this area, but we're learning really, really fast. And I think some, hopefully, the good things we're going to bring with us after this.
Okay, that sounds good. And like from maybe the a little bit the outsider today, and also the expert, like you are. Have you been discovering anything? We're going to dive more into that, but is there anything just like, do you listen to more music? Do you watch more movies? Do you like is culture a bigger or a smaller part of your life as a technology geek?
Well, sometimes I would say it's even bigger, because I've been doing a lot of research on what you can experience while you're isolated at home, and I've actually done little segments on Instagram, not every day, but almost every day, with tips and guides to how can you deal with your health physically, do yoga or other exercises at home. How can you deal with your mental health, also meditation and sleep aids and stuff like that. And all this is apps and internet services, and a lot of it is also the cultural institutions, like the two we have represented today, that have been very good and very fast with some offers of how you can experience their collections, or how you can go in and have maybe a virtual reality experience, or zoom in on the pieces that they have. So I've actually really sort of crawled the web to find these things, and so that means that I've experienced more sort of a more dense cultural experience than I have when I go out to physical concerts.
Yeah, great. We're going to talk about that later. So thank you so much, Mark Christophe. Luciana channel have more than 100,000 viewers, and I guess it's even more than that. You know that, of course, and it's a huge success also during these COVID-19 days. But how would you describe the state of Luciana channel right now? And how is your like online universe? Would you say it's compensating for the loss of physical presence for Luciana?
No, if you're asking me, I'm a bit like a yin and yang person right now, because on the one hand side, Louisiana Channel is having really good times. I mean, we have been founding this project 8 years ago, and actually right now we're doing nothing else than we have done for 8 years. But suddenly we have got a lot of attention, like you mentioned, from the New York Times or the Guardian in London, and Handelsblatt in Germany. They have all been writing about us and kind of comparing us with other online channels of other great museums. So in a way, it's a wonderful time, and we have almost doubled our number of subscribers only on YouTube. But on the other hand, of course, we're part of an organization like the physical museum, Louisiana Museum, that is really challenged in those days. And we're actually looking on our iPhones today, because right now the Danish government is deciding how to open up the second stage of the government, and we'll see if the museums are there. But like Troy said, it's actually interesting to see how culture plays a role and does not play a role. As you mentioned, I'm from Germany. I'm born in Berlin. I've been living in Copenhagen for almost 17 years now. In Germany, the museums are already open because we find them important. And here it's almost, they talk about restaurants and they talk about football, but nobody is really interested in the museums. And we think, we all think that what culture is doing for our societies is really, really important. So you see me with a smiling and with a crying eye at the same time.
All right. Okay. I'm really happy to hear about the Luciana channel. I've been following you for years, and yeah, let's hope for the best for the physical situation as well. But I'm happy to have you all here today, and I think let's jump into also what's happening online. And of course, we can all agree that the internet is booming with online formats here during the corona crisis. Um, in my world, in the music world, every music artist is doing concerts from the living rooms and trying to find new formats for reaching the audience. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes I'm just really tired of not being able to see the show in a room with other people with a beer in my hand. What would you say, the three of you, within the art and culture world? Is there anything that caught your attention lately? Something that have a high artistic entertainment level and for sure a high quality. Mike, Christoph, do you have an example you want to share with us to inspire us?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, uh, if I start with kind of what we're doing, I'm from between all of you, I'm kind of the digital dinosaur. I'm, for example, on a personal level, not on any social media, and I know this is funny to say here, and but we have what we're believing in Louisiana Channel, for example, is that the internet plays a huge role for content. I mean, I've been shifting from a public service TV station, a big TV station, to this project because I was interested in the internet as a means of doing public service and suddenly reaching a global audience. And so, in a way, as I said before, we're in Louisiana Channel. We're not doing anything different that we have been doing for 8 years. But I've been especially impressed. We have the Copenhagen Docs Documentary Festival, which is another kind of platform that is interested in great content, in high quality content. And like everybody else, it was hit by the corona crisis. It was set to be taken off at the end of March. And almost within days, they kind of turned it from a physical festival where you meet in the cinemas to a digital one. So instead of canceling everything like the big music festivals like Roskilde has to do, they found a way of keeping kind of the content and the quality, but finding a new way of distributing. And I've been really impressed to follow that. It's one of the kind of biggest documentary festivals in the world. And they found a way of, not having to shut down, but doing the same thing on a digital level. And I think this has been really impressive to follow.
Yeah, no, I think too, like you're saying, that it's interesting how people can work with the formats and adapt to the new reality. And I definitely think that Copenhagen Docs is one of the formats that's been doing this really, really well. Thanks for that. We will after the talk today put up the link so people can check it out. But you can go there and rent movies for a certain period and so on, right? So anything you could recommend then? Is there anything specific that we have to see? Did you get some inspiration there? Did you have time to check it out?
I'm a modest person. We on Louisiana Channel had a film about Jørgen Let there as well. But I mean, there's lots of the opening film about Greenland, and there was a discussion with Edward Snowden live transmission. So I mean, they're doing such a great job, and I think we're all here because we believe in content, we believe in culture, contributing to our society and the discussion about how we all live together. So I think it's not pointing only at what we're doing, but on if there's a format like, and there are other ones. I mean, there are great museums, the Guggenheim Museum, museums all over the world that kind of believe in this focus on content. So Copenhagen Docs is one way of highlighting.
All right, thank you. Talking about Guggenheim, Troy, how about you? Anything you want to share with us that caught your attention or you leaning towards in this little bit difficult times?
Yeah, so I guess there's maybe two things. Basically, I'm not an aesthete, so I work in the cultural world, but what I tend to think of myself more like a cultural engineer. I was actually trained as a computer engineer before going into architecture and then ending up working in a museum. And what I mean by that is, um, I'm less interested in what's happening in culture than what's happening in the world and how to work in culture to participate in the world. And that's not to say others aren't, but rather that um, at a time like this, when I'm running a full-time daycare for my 2-year-old at home, and also trying to keep up my obligations to the Guggenheim, I have kind of very little time to dive into what else is happening in the world. And so instead of diving into arts and culture, I've been looking at kind of who has the best purchase on what the hell is going on. And one place where I found really it's the text I wish I'd written myself, because it was sort of like everything that's been floating in my brain for about 3 years up until the present, that all got down in one place, was an essay by Charles Eisenstein called The Coronation. And I think I might have sent you a picture of this, but the punchline of it is basically he says that this whole corona thing, whether it's just a horrendous virus and we're all in this together, and there's going to be death and grieving and economic fallout, or on the other end of the spectrum it's a horrendous conspiracy theory, which we've probably all heard now, all the people getting banned off of YouTube and whatever because they put the wrong two words together, and all the digital monopolists are now state government censors, I guess. What he says is we'll never know what it is, almost kind of like the JFK assassination. We all know something's weird and something that history will change after this moment, but we don't know what it is. So rather than spending our time trying to figure it out, why don't we take a different tack? Why don't we think about this moment differently? And the way that he challenges us to think of it, which I think is useful, is as an initiation. He says it follows the template of an initiation, which is, I'm just reading off my screen here, separation from normality, followed by a dilemma, breakdown, or ordeal, and then followed, if it's to be completed, by a reintegration and celebration. And I think that this concept of going through a global mass forced initiation is a much more interesting way to think of this than some invisible microbes that may or may not have come from China and are threatening the world because of airplanes and globalism and capitalism and whatever else. And so the second thing that I sent you was an online magic class. So the other thing I've been doing with my free time when I'm not consuming, live streamed operas or whatever, is trying to make sense of ways of actually going through processes of initiation from cultures and traditions that haven't forgotten how, in the same way that I think kind of Western cultures have not just forgotten how, but occulted and outlawed.
Yeah, and we actually have your model here on the screen right now.
I'm going to need a few more minutes to explain this. You might want to move on to someone.
I mean, you can still have a minute if you want to add something to it.
Well, the reason I shared this is this. So my friend Gordon runs a website called runesoup.com. I think he's kind of basically a genius, and he does these quarterly magic classes. He's a chaos magician, so he's teaching things like how to do sigil magic or journeying on mushrooms and stuff like that. This class is all about it's sort of everything you need to know in the present from the perspective of a wizard. So what would a wizard do in a moment of economic fallout, a kind of Great Depression 2.0? How does a wizard take care of their health and their immune system? How do you predict the future when it's not predictable? What are techniques of divination and fortune telling? And what's a kind of basic metaphysics that accounts for history, that allows you to strategize how to use your time? And what he's showing here is basically this idea of the virus. A lot of people have fallen down the rabbit hole of how much money Bill Gates gives to the WHO and whether they're good actors or bad actors or whatever. And basically his argument is you can fall all the way down that rabbit hole, but history will keep moving. So forget about it. And instead, we can kind of predict where this is going next. So we know there's going to be severe recession. We know there's going to be civil unrest and supply disruptions. We know that there's probably going to be future waves of this. And the thing that we're tending towards, and this is why I brought it up for this conversation, is like literally we've seen the totalitarianism at play already in what we're doing digitally. So I guess
Yeah.
like the thing I'd want to pay heed to as somebody who works in this field professionally is be careful how quickly we digitize everything. Because Mark Christoph just mentioned a talk with Edward Snowden. Let's not forget what he reminded us about what happens when everything goes online and who has
Yeah.
access to it and how it's used for and against us.
Yeah.
So I think that, just let's not be so hasty when we're rushing into getting all of our content crammed into the internet. Let's think about what are the platforms we actually care about and want to support. Is YouTube really a neutral platform? Should we hand it all content, and is it worth it?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I follow you, and I also see, like you say, I see the difference. I live part-time in Los Angeles, part-time in Copenhagen, and of course, our society is smaller. I think we feel maybe more safe in general here. So I think it's good to have those examples about how should we actually think about the situation. There's actually a hope, and one of the core values of our lives. So actually, Christiane, now Troy is talking about be careful about all the online stuff. That's kind of your life, right? What have been inspiring you in these times?
It's true. It is the area in which I work, but I find it so interesting both what Troy and what Mark said, and Troy speaking about this sort of initiation ritual that we are collectively going through here. It's like what you in anthropology will call the liminal phase. It's a phase where we are all different from what we normally are, which means we can do different things, which means it's okay to have business meetings in your pajamas almost, and it's okay to sort of let your privacy person shine through in your public life. And so there's a different thing. It's okay to drink more alcohol. It's okay to maybe be in touch with different people than you normally are. So that's sort of the craziness of that liminal phase that we're in, and then we have to have a reintroduction into the normal life. But right now we can do things that we don't normally do, and that means also that people can individually experience maybe with arts. So we're seeing people turning much more towards learning how to play the guitar or starting painting again if they haven't done it for a while, or other sort of artsy expressions. People are knitting or something else. So I think that the fact that we have to have our contact digitally, and a lot of the things that we're experiencing, we're watching a lot of Netflix and streaming services, but we also want something tactile. We also want to sort of go back to baking and knitting and stuff like that, because it makes us feel human, and we are in a specific situation where we can do something that we don't normally do. Like I just laid a puzzle of 1,000 pieces. I've never done that before, so that's my sort of crazy face right now. And Troy also mentioned Edward Snowden, and Mark mentioned the movie from Copenhagen Docs. I can recommend in Copenhagen Docs where the movies that you can watch now. There's quite a few on sort of digitalization and on what it means that all our data is flying all over the place. And of course, that's also what Snowden is talking about in that talk. And so another thing that I want to point out before I bring my example in is that we are so eager to digitalize things now. And that has some good sides to it, but it also has that side to it that we don't always give it enough thought if we should. We don't have to just because we can. And that's sort of a statement that we should tell ourselves every time we want to do something new in the digital world. Should we put so much effort into what I call Corona technology, Corona apps that will track the population and maybe become sort of a privacy invasive and do things to our democracy and the human rights that we fought for generations. So that's one of the things that I think is quite important to think about now. And then I'm quite fascinated with that whole sort of that window between the private life and the public life. And the project that I have as a case that I've been very fascinated by, it's called Collective Minds, and it's from a Danish artist called Mille Mose. And it's going to be in Copenhagen and China, and maybe also New York, actually. And it's sort of a meeting between the private lives that we have, the situation that we are in now, create a lot of loneliness. But the paradox is also creating sort of a, we also fed up with, sometimes with the very few people that we are with. People love their children and they love their spouses, but you know that all the inspiration that we normally get from our lives outside, we have to collect from like 1 or 2 or 3 people right now, and that's creating a lot of stress. So we have, on one hand, we have loneliness, feeling of isolation, and then on the other hand, we have sort of a saturation, and sort of a very intense feeling. And in this installation, this art project, you have the artist has created a work with a lot of little pieces. I don't know if we have a picture of it, but it has like little pieces of paper inside it. It's like a big window with a lot of papers. So when the installation is out in the public, you can go in and you can write. You can pull out a little piece of paper, like a book from a bookshelf, and you can write something on it. Then you take a picture of it and you put it back in, so you become a part of this project. And then you upload the picture of what you've written on that piece of paper. It's online, so that's also a social media thing. And then people will pick out like the best of these, and they will then become visible in a big public digital billboard. So let's imagine Times Square, or like the main square in Copenhagen, or in Shanghai. They will have something that is about the isolation. It's about the emotions. It's about just the emotional lives of people out in the public space. And I think that's very interesting to sort of, because the situation we're in now, it's already merging these two things. So I like this project that's both analog.
Yeah, amazing. So it's kind of merging the two worlds. It's about being part of something bigger than yourself. It's about grabbing the opportunity that people maybe have time to dive into this and contribute somehow. I think it's a very beautiful example.
And another thing that we're seeing is that another example of how the public and the private is sort of merging is that we've actually seen politicians and CEOs crying in interviews. They've been very touched by the situation because it is so personal, and there are so many sacrifices, not just death, but also companies that are going broke and restaurants that will never open up again. So it's very emotional. And the fact that we have this, and then we're back to that sort of liminal face, or that sort of ritual that we're not. People are behaving differently than they normally do. And I think
actually,
it's a good thing.
And actually, like if you look into the specific things, then like experts claims that digitization process is speeding up during the COVID-19 crisis. What, in your opinion, like all the three of you should die and be buried together with the coronavirus? And what should we take with us to the post-corona era? In other words, what can we learn from the crisis? And Christiane, you said about you actually see people show emotions. How about you, Mark Christophe, for example? Is there anything you say, this is great, this is something that I want to put in my bag and take into the future?
Well, I believe that every crisis is an opportunity. And I mean, just looking at this talk and looking at how much creativity there's out there in the world and how kind of we're able to communicate. I mean, Troy is sitting in New York right now, and it's almost like he's sitting here on my table. So we have the means of communicating, and we have a knowledge of how much creativity, and we are becoming aware that things we're taking for natural don't have to be natural. We can do it another way. I mean, maybe this is the chance that we should not leave our life to governments and to companies, but that we have a voice, and we have there's so much creativity in living a different life. And I mean, I don't have a solution right now and the final thing, but I have actually enjoyed it. We have 2 kids, like Troy, they're at homeschooling. I've read a lot of books, and we've seen a lot of TV series. So there's kind of everything that has been normal before has shown that there's another way of doing things. And I might think over in the weeks to come or months to come, whether or not I have to take my car to the office 50 kilometers away from here every day, or whether or not I can have 2 days working at home like I used to during the last week. So we'll see. I think, as I said, in every crisis, there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, of course. How about you, Troy? Sitting in New York and being in the middle of everything.
So what should we kill off along with coronavirus, and what should we
Yeah,
carry forward? I think
it can also be specific formats like culture formats, online things. It can also be the way that we behave. What do you think we can learn from this and actually use in the future?
yeah. Well, first of all, I think we need to kill off the fear. That needs to burn away with the fevers. I think we also need to. I think we need to burn off a blind adherence to authority. I mean, this is maybe a pretty specific American condition, but there's just such a staunch tribalization in America right now, and a lot of that tribalization clusters around where you get your information. I mean, we've all heard of filter bubbles and stuff like this. Like the people that use filter bubbles as a critique the most are probably deepest in their own filter bubbles. So I think what's interesting is when the whole world is like literally billions, plural, billions of people are in lockdown, um, and only certain things are now allowed to be said out loud, and these kind of massive totalitarian measures are being kind of handed down with just a breathtaking speed and lack of friction. Um, I think it's going to open a lot of eyeballs, and so I hope those eyeballs stay wide awake and wide open after your own life and your own grandmother's life and your own livelihood are no longer necessarily in the crosshairs. The other things though that I think, like Mark Christophe mentioned this, I think like literally reading books, going back to the source. I'm getting sick and tired of like can we retire the concept of expertise? That's what I'd like to do. I like the idea of kind of individual sovereignty over your own opinion, as opposed to clustering around what some pundit told you to think. And then the second thing, just a basic, tiny little bit, like a little practice that I've been doing myself. And actually, Christiane mentioned this also. This sort of like the basic mental health practices we've all had to learn now as a result of being trapped indoors with our loved ones. Presumably we can carry those over, but I think like one of them that's been really helpful for me is just an understanding of time management and not getting frustrated without being able to take on big, huge projects. I think like little tiny things, being able to like accomplish little tiny tasks and finding the pleasure in them, and also letting yourself off the hook when you don't get through them because maybe you bit off more than you can chew. I think that's going to be incredibly important now when there's so much volatility and uncertainty and unpredictability. That if that can carry through our organizations, I think it could actually change the way that we work together and work in hierarchies. For example, anyone who's a boss of someone else, give them a break, man. Like nobody knows what the hell is going on, and also realize like all the do-gooders trying to put ideas into the world right now don't know either, and they could end up on the wrong side of history by saying something that makes a lot of sense today that when the whole world changes again tomorrow. So I think like it's just this being able to become listeners and being able to like know how to produce things that will make sense for the short term but have forgivability in the long term are something that I think is more pervasive.
Yes. Okay. That sounds like the way to go actually. And Christiane, just shortly, do you have anything that you're taking with you in your bag?
Well, I just love that Troy is talking about forgiveness, and because there's a lot of patience needed here towards others, but also towards yourself, because people are reacting differently to this. So I hope that we can bring some of this sort of largeness or patience with us forward when the world becomes more as we know it. And in generally, I think that in Denmark we've had sort of the slogan publicly that we're alone together. And I hope we can continue to sort of have that feeling of being together, because if we can manage to have a feeling of togetherness while being the most isolated we've ever been in history, we cannot be together at a football match. We cannot be, with our friends for a concert. So, but we're still.
But do you feel like do you feel part of an online community now, for example, Christiane?
Yes, I definitely do. I mean, I've always used Twitter a lot, but for me, that's been sort of a sanity check every day. Sometimes it's also crazy on Twitter, but I have a lot of people that I respect and really care about in my Twitter community. So, I mean, that's my colleagues every day. That's sort of just seeing something that's recognizable and predictive in some way. And I hope that a lot of people have had that experience also.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Time flies, and you are great company. Thank you for being with us today. We have a question from the viewers, and this might mainly be for Troy and Christoph, but it sounds like this. Will cultural institutions stay on the digital track when they are following now, or will they go back to normal as soon as they reopen? Can you say a short word about that? Troy, what about the Guggenheim?
Yeah, I think there's going to be no end to people like coining what this moment is. I think I've been hearing things like the great pause or whatever. At some point, someone's going to call it the great reorg. And I think what it's doing is it's causing, and somebody mentioned this earlier, I think it was Christiane, that this is forcing institutions to do things they probably should have done for a while. And so I think there is going to be, this kind of all around embrace of the digital, I think is going to stick. But what I hope is that we can, I think I've been saying this, is get beyond the like rookie phase, get beyond the kind of enthusiasm phase, and really start to say, okay, well, if we're going to take digital seriously, what does it mean? And how do you get on the right side of history of digital? What is your stack? What are you using? Are you on Twitter? And is that because you believe in Twitter as a company and what the words coming out through Twitter should be? I think that these things will stick. I think the institutions that will win, the ones that will really be able to do the great reorg successfully and carry things forward, are the ones that really hold the digital medium to the same level of scrutiny as they hold, what painting they put on a wall.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's good. That's a good way to go. Mike, Christoph, what do you think will be business as usual when this is over, if it's ever over in the way that we know from back before?
Very shortly, I think Louisiana Channel will pretty much go on as we have been doing for 8 years. But I mean, it's in a way, success is an obligation as well. So being an editor or the editorial team will be even sharper, looking at the kind of the voices we're publishing. Are those not the right voices, but is the content really important? Does it make a difference? Does it contribute to the cultural and social discussions that we're having? We might think about broadening our range. Right now, we're exclusively kind of focusing on artists and architects, all the things that the museum is exhibiting as well. But why not philosophers or thinkers or kind of smart voices? We'll have to look at them, but we pretty much will do the same, I think.
Yeah. All right. I know there's a lot of people that are really looking forward to being able to visit the physical location into Louisiana again. So yeah, I personally I can't wait. So yeah, speed it up, do everything you can. All right, thank you everyone. Christiane and Troy, Mike, Christoph, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and opinions and answering the question, what happens online? I feel very inspired, and now I know what I want to do, and I know what I don't want to do, dig into online. But before the broadcast ends, I promised to give a couple, you promised me to give a couple of grades. So I would like you to give a number from 1 to 10 for the Danish Global Culture Talks. And you can explain, just give it a number. So Troy, what do you think about the overall format?
I'm not going to play that game.
Come
on. Yeah, no, it's great. I would just say use something other than Zoom next time.
Okay, good. So no numbers from you?
You should ask me first. I'm not going to be coaxed into giving you a score. I just said we should forgive each other. So I'm not going to turn this into a competition or a scoring match.
That's good. What about you, Christiane?
Well, I have to say something now.
It's up to you.
I'm not going to say a number without adding something. So I think that the conversation was very inspiring. I'm very happy to be in the company of all you great minds. And so I think that lovely conversation, 8-9, it's one of the better ones that I've participated in. And I mean, it's always a challenge with technology. I wish that the music had been there was a little bit on the music microphone side maybe, but again, that's the thing. We have to sometimes take sort of half solutions right now, but what we're hoping for is that we have this quantum leap in the technology also now, so that we're actually learning something. So maybe in only a few months we'll have like a double as good a solution we can use.
Yeah, and there are a lot of good startups out there that's really trying to deliver something really high quality. Okay, Mark Christoph, what about you? What do you think?
I'm a modest person, as I said before, so I would agree with Christiania, but as I've been participating myself, that tracks down, so I give it a 7.
All right. Thank you so much for participating in today's talk show. I want to give a big thank to Kwame Liu for her beautiful performance, and to our 3 amazing guests, Christiane Weiley, Mark Christoph Wagner, and Troy Conrad Tyrion. I, your host for today, Christian Ries, is very thankful for all of you tagging along. And remember, we are here back on the Danish Global Culture Talks next Thursday, May 14th, 4 p.m. CET. If you joined our talk late today, or if you want to rediscover this talk show online, you can find it here where you are right now in a couple of hours. Until then, take care and enjoy all the amazing stuff that you find out there online. Thank you. Have a great day.